going everyone? It's Abysmal Bloom, and this is going to be my first video of 2025. And so with that, I want to start off by wishing everybody a very belated Happy New Year's. I recently only got back into my normal life schedule after visiting family, friends, and also traveling to Seattle and Arizona. So we're getting everything back in track. And recently I just had my first locals of 2025, and we went with Purrely Mimighoul Fiendsmith, and we were able to get first with it. So in this video, I'm just going to be sharing with you guys my list, some of the reasons why we're playing the ratios, and yeah, I guess we'll just take it from there. So with that, let's just jump right on into the video. To start off with, this is a 45 card main deck list. We are very tight in the space. We have Purrely engines, Mimighoul engines, and also a small Fiendsmith package, so it gets really tight. But we still somehow managed to squeeze in something like 12 non-engine, so it's still very powerful and very capable of breaking boards. So starting off with the Purrely engine, it's a 16 card package of 1 Purrely, 2 Purrely. This ratio has been pretty much the same that I've been using for even my previous lists, but to be honest, having a second Purrely or even a third Purrely might be nice. Just having 4 names to work with really comes up, because there are cases where I open and make a Purrely rank 2 monster, and then I still want to get 2 level 1 bodies out, which means I end up potentially just going through all the names. So yeah, just having a 4th name in general might be something I might consider. But overall, it's been fine. Next, we have 2 copies of My From Purrely. We don't play the third one mainly because they're very highly searchable cards, and for the most part, this is a once per turn. I guess is the biggest reason why I wouldn't play it at 3 copies. Plus, we're just trying to reduce our deck size. So those are the main reasons, but 2 copies works phenomenally. Overall, fine. From here, we do max out on all the Purrely quick plays because they are indeed very powerful. I just want to give a quick shout out to Purrely Happy Memory. There was, I think, a match where my opponent tried to Ghost Ogre the Mimighoul field spell, and we were not only able to protect it with the Purrely Happy Memory's protection effect, we also got a Purrely out in that interaction. So it's just nice for certain small interactions like that. You just get stuff going. And then obviously, to round off the Purrely package, we have the 1 Purrely, which gets us to our X Purrely Noir sometimes through E Purrely Noir. But more often than not, I just see myself just trying to get to this card just so that I can dump it into the graveyard so that we have follow-up when we shuffle back the names. Again, if I play a 4th Purrely name, this may not be as important, but as of right now, it's kind of important to get there just for that purpose. So that's the Purrely package. Next, for the Mimighoul stuff, we are at something like 11 cards, I believe. So starting off, we're on 3 copies of Dragon, because this is still the best summon of the deck. We are then on 2 copies of Archfiend, because this is basically another really solid card. You only really want to always just see Dragon and Archfiend from the Mimighoul stuff anyways, so this is perfect. And then lastly, we have the 1 copy of Fairy, and this is mainly as an extender, because now that there is in fact a rank 1 monster that is also a generic search for the deck, just being able to bring out Fairy sometimes is really nice. Plus, its occasional flip effect does come up versus decks that want to summon from their hand, so it can actually be really good sometimes. Next, I'm on 2 copies of Dungeon and 2 copies of Maker with 1 copy of Rune. So again, part of the reason why this is cut to only this much is because we are trying to also fit in a Fiendsmith package. But the more important thing is, again, these guys are, just like My From Purrely, very easily searchable off of the Dragon summon. So honestly, being able to just play them at 2 doesn't hurt, and you always have the follow-up again. So this has worked fine. The ratios have been phenomenal. And again, just this is just 11 cards. So this is right here, 27 cards total. You may have noticed that we are not playing Mimighoul Master or Slime anymore. And that also actually gets reflected in the extra deck as well, because we no longer play Throne. So this does, I guess, affect the Mimighoul combo a little bit, because you don't have the guarantee of always being able to just normal summon a dragon anymore. But that just means you kind of play it a little bit different. Because the more important thing from the Mimighoul package is you want to be able to get to the field spell and Rune. Or if you can also just get to Rune with Maker in the graveyard, that's also a really solid end board for the Mimighoul side. So that's really the biggest difference. You end up just using the Mimighoul stuff to just kind of go into the Link 2s, into the Fiendsmith stuff afterwards now. So that's probably the biggest difference with no longer playing the Mimighoul Throne and Master. Which isn't really all that bad too, because they are kind of bricks in your hand and you don't really want to see them. So this kind of clears up that issue as well. So yeah, that's the Mimighoul side. And then the third engine that we're playing in here, the Fiendsmith, we have 1 copy of Lacrima, 2 copies of Engraver. This is, again, the minimum you need for these guys. We play the 1 Luri, just so that we can play Attract, so that Engraver isn't a brick in your hand. And then finally, we have the 1 Fiendsmith in Paradise, just because it's a good discard, plus the interaction in the graveyard is really powerful. So you just have to play it. And so that's a total of 6 cards for the Fiendsmith stuff. So the main deck engine right here is 33 cards, and the remaining cards left are all just non-engine. So what we're playing for non-engine right now are Bestial Magnamut and Druid Swarm, mainly because Magnamut can get you a Druid Swarm or even get you to the Mimighoul engine. And they're pretty solid at shutting down Fiendsmith, and even they can even like help you break boards like versus a Detonator with Druid Swarm. So these guys are great. Next, we play 2 copies of Ash because they're pretty generic, always good for something or another. Not much to say about that. I'm on 2 copies of Ghost Ogre, and it's kind of the weaker hand trap, to be honest, but I still play it because even if you top deck it, if it's your 6th card, or even for if you draw it off of Purrely Noir, it can be effective when trying to deal with your opponent's boards. So that's the main reason why it's in there, but I do see myself citing it out for other stuff usually. Next, I'm on 2 copies of Thrust, and we also have the 1 copy of Talons. These guys, you just have to play it, because the Mimighoul stuff will always be able to trigger this stuff. It may not be as common now because we're not playing the giant because we're not playing Mimighoul Throne, but we still have plays that can just always guarantee it in the extra deck. So you just have to play this. Lastly, I'm on 2 copies of Imperm and 1 copy of the Black Gold Lapse. So Imperm is pretty solid as both a hand trap and board breaker again. The Black Gold Lapse is really nice just because this is a great discard, and you can also just set it off of the what do you call it? It's a better set off of Thrust than Imperm, because you're just able to call an Xyz monster, for example, that you really don't want to deal with, like Detonator, and they can't even make it if you activate it from the board. And if you just discard it, again, they just can't activate the effect of Detonator for the rest of the turn. So it's really just more effective than Imperm in a lot of cases, because your opponent can't really try to dodge it like they can with Imperm. So that is the non-engine. And so that comes to a total of 45 cards. Next, for the Xyz package, starting off with the Purrely side of stuff, we have 1x Purrely Noir, 1e Purrely Noir, 1 Happiness, 1 Beauty, and 1 Plump. Ideally, if the deck wasn't so tight, you would want to play a second X Purrely Noir, but this ratio works out fine just because I see myself hard making X Purrely Noir more often than not now. There's also the fact that we don't really go to like a turn 3, 4, 5. So X Purrely Noir, having a second one hasn't really been that much of an issue. Next, we have the Mimighoul package, and that's the giant Mimighoul, and then we're playing number 31, just so that we can guarantee flipping the Mimighoul monsters that we give the opponent. So this is good for two reasons. You are always going to be able to get to 2 bodies when you do this, so you can go into the Fiendsmith line afterwards. But because you've also forced the opponent to activate a monster effect, your talents and thrust are now always live. So this is really good, and also how you kind of guarantee that your talents and thrust will always be useful, versus what we were doing before with the Mimighoul Throne into searching the Mimighoul field spell and all that stuff. So this works out fine for the Mimighoul side of stuff. Next, we also have the Fiendsmith package here, and so that's basically, we have 1 copy of Caesar. The ideal end board, usually going first, is you have a Caesar with both the Link 1 and the Lacrima in the graveyard, so you can just get the trap in the graveyard as well and get an additional interaction. So it comes to something like 3 interactions just off of the Fiendsmith stuff. So that's why you have that. We then obviously play the Desiree, because this is important for that additional interaction. Plus, it's just a really good Omni Negate that you can set up as well. And obviously, to get into this stuff, you also have the Necroquip Princess. And this one's kind of good because you can bait out interactions. And sometimes you actually just use a hand trap and you just draw 1 for it too. So, really nice with that. We then have the 1 copy of Chaos Angel, and again, Necroquip Princess is really nice because you can use it to go into either the Caesar or the Chaos Angel. So that's why this is very important in the list. Chaos Angel, it comes up, it's just nice to have because now you have 2 towers that your opponent has to deal with. And yeah, Chaos Angel more often comes up when you're just trying to break the board or just trying to sit on another towers. So that's the other tower monster. From there, for the Link monsters, we have the Moon of the Closed Heaven, Fiendsmith Sequence, and obviously the Requiem, just so that you have the Fiendsmith package. And then the last card in our extra deck is an SP Little Knight, just in case we want another interaction. I was thinking about Typhon as well, but SP Little Knight plays better into D-Barrier, so that's the main reason why this is in the extra deck. So that's the extra deck. Lastly, for the side deck, we have the 1 Typhon, so we can always just switch out some other card in the extra deck for Typhon if we really need it, and it comes up in certain matchups, like if you really need it versus Detonator. It's just a really nice card to be there. We also play the 1 copy of Santa Claus, and this is wild because in this deck you technically have something like 4 copies of Santa Claus, because Engraver plus the Fiendsmith spell, they both can just help you search and get to Santa Claus as well. So you have a solid number of cards that just get you to the Kaiju if you really need it. And then obviously with the Mimighoul stuff, you're also trying to blow up their board usually. So Santa Claus gets into your graveyard, after which you can just kind of use it with the Engraver to just shuffle this back and just bring back the Engraver. So it's kind of nice. It just comes up sometimes. We then have the 3 copies of the Lancia, and this is straight up just for Maliss. We had 2 copies of Ghost Bell, and this also was mainly just for Maliss. I just find it as a very good interaction because you can use it on the white binder stuff and they don't get any of those banishes, which is huge. So that's the main reason for that. We also have Book of Eclipse, And this is just a really solid board breaker, and it's not a once per turn. So that's why it's one of the nicer board breakers right now. Plus, when you're trying to break boards, if you can pair Lightning Storm or even a Feather Duster with Book of Eclipse, it kind of just shuts down so many boards. So yeah, this is like the board breaker package. And then lastly, we have obviously the 1D barrier, because we can always just trigger it off of Thrust. And then we similarly have an Artifact Sanctum, just so that we can do kind of the same thing with Lancia. So that is the side deck. So some small interactions that I thought were neat and I wanted to share real quick was, you obviously have the fact that Purrely can get you to the Mimighoul engine with 2 level 1 bodies. There's also the fact that 2 bodies on the board in general gets you to the Fiendsmith engine, so you have extenders for days. But the wildest thing is, if you ever bring out Luri, it can help you go into both either the Mimighoul or the Fiendsmith, just because it is a level 1. So all of these cards, they kind of just help you mix and match to get to whatever engine you need. So it's really good at extending. It's very powerful. And finally, in terms of what the ideal end board would look like, is you would want to end on at least a copy of Fiendsmith and Paradise in the graveyard, with the copies of both Requiem and potentially even the Lacrima. You would also try to make an Purrely Noir, but if you can't get to that, your next best option is usually a Beauty. And then on top of that, you're trying to also get to a Wave King Caesar, plus usually a copy of the Mimighoul Field Spell plus the Trap. You're trying to get to either this, or if you can't get to that, the other option is getting to Maker in the graveyard with Room. So this is more or less what your end board is trying to be. Overall, it's pretty solid in terms of what it does for your deck. You have follow-up usually, plus the interactions in general are just very powerful. You've got 2 summon negates off of Caesar, plus you have the special summon sent to the graveyard with Paradise and the Requiem basically in the graveyard. You have the Rune to book a Luna monster, and if you have Maker, if they continue playing, you can just banish Maker to flip the monster that you gave the opponent. Or if you have Dungeon, they can't really normal summon, so it becomes hard for them to kind of play with that as well. So that's kind of where the interactions are. And then obviously you have either the Beauty or the Purrely Noir for 1 to 2 more interactions. And if you have a Sleepy Memory on top of that, you usually get a draw 1 to 2 on the basically as well. So overall, I'd say deck is pretty solid. It's got a solid amount of interactions. You're able to shut down your opponent from doing quite a bit as well. And yeah, the follow-up as well is pretty strong, because you can just go into like a Chaos Angel or even just hard make the Desiree the following turn and just kind of just shut down the opponent from really doing anything. So that's all I had to share with you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video.